And this is the formula for balance, for any kind of balance anywhere in your life, your business, your relationships, and everything in between. So it's T like the letter truth over B like the letter boy. So it's alphabet TB, T over B. The T is you being able to admit the truth of what you really want, not what you need. We need shelter. We need safety. We need food. Just assume that the needs are understood. We need our partner to respect us. We need our partner to hear us, right? Like, assume that the needs of a healthy sense of self are understood. Relationship, business, all the things. Then the B is your boundaries, the boundaries that you will create to achieve that truth as your reality.
Welcome back, people. We are here. We are ready to rock and roll. I cannot believe that we are nearing the end of season 8. Isn't that wild? I'm just I feel so honored, and it's just so cool to be doing this with you still and to just keep elevating and growing. And it's just great. It's great. I'm here for it.
Truly is, truly is. But we are going to hop right into it.
Yeah. So the quote of the week, since we are talking about being a little bit selfish, the quote of the week comes from Jada Pinkett Smith, and it says, "You always have to remember to take care of you first and foremost. Because when you stop taking care of yourself, you get out of balance and you really forget how to take care of others." And I know so many of us, especially mothers and wives and people who caretake for their elderly parents and just anyone who has to manage other people's well-being, it is so, so hard to put yourself first. So this is your reminder if you need it. If you've been slacking on your self-care, if you've been slacking on prioritizing yourself and your own mental health, this
Yeah.
is your reminder to get back to yourself.
Amen. Amen. And I tell people all the time, you have to remember you sacrificing and doing the most for other people while also neglecting yourself. You are constantly telling the universe, hey, this is how I like to be treated. So send me more people like this.
Yep.
Send me more experience like this that don't feel me, that don't make me feel cared for, that don't honor me, because you never honor you. And whatever you don't require, you will not have. It is not about what you deserve, it is about what you require. So if you require you to treat you a certain way, those who come into your life, if they don't, they will make their own way out simply because you don't even allow that type of thing. So if you are not liking the responses or the experiences that are being curated in your experience, start being a little bit more selfish with ensuring that, hey, I have taken care of me. I have provided for the things that I need unapologetically so now I can give of my excess versus of my need, of my necessity.
Hmm. That part.
Absolutely. And now for our dating well AF tip of the week, because y'all know I love these. Know your worth and add some tax. Just add a little tax to it. And what I mean by that is, so you have to understand that humans, whether you are dating a male or a female, humans many times inherently are going to think about themselves, right? And so, if you are dating people who are inherently thinking about themselves and you have not identified what your worth is, what your requirements are, what type of experience you want curated in your life, and you have not added the tax to it, which is that additional requirement piece, people are going to give you whatever they want and you will be stuck with whatever they decide to give you. And that is not an experience you want created in your universe. Believe it or not, we live one time that we gonna remember. Okay. That we gonna remember. So with this one life, especially because you have no idea how long you will be, in this dimension, on this plane at this time, make sure you get super clear on where does my value lie. And if you are confused about that, start writing out what makes you the best at whatever it is. So I
Yeah.
know when I had a really low self-esteem and I was trying to figure out what am I good at, what value do I offer to the world, I would just start writing out just a bunch of things about what my skills were, what my gifts were, what my talents were, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote all of those out. And then I would kind of write love notes to them. Like, I love the fact that I am so direct. because it's not rooted in anger or hatred, or it's not trying to, hurt someone. I would write out all of those things, what my gifts and talents were, and then write little love notes. And the love note literally was, I love the fact that, and then I would write whatever that gift or skill or talent was. And it helped me to develop a really healthy affinity towards who I was.
Yeah, I pat myself on the back a lot. So that's something I think everyone should do.
Yeah.
Like I will like acknowledge, like I'm very big on celebrating all the wins, small wins, big wins, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I'll cook a really good meal. I'm like, oh, I could cook. Oh, that was good. I'll put myself down. I'm like, oh, okay, this was good. Like, like I speak to myself in that way. Um, I have for a very long I don't really remember not speaking to myself that way because I realized really young how important it was to just like feel good within yourself. Like I like to, especially when I'm talking about my healing journey, all of my healing journey is rooted in how I feel inside. And if how I
Mm.
feel inside is just not aligning with the outside, like I don't care about the outside. Like I need to feel good inside. So when you know your worth and you add a little tax, because people will still try you and still try to tear you down. So I need a little extra as women, especially. It's just gonna help shift the kind of people you attract. And it's
Mhm.
going to change your approach to dating because there's just going to be things you simply don't tolerate. There's places you just will not go. There are people that just won't have access to you. It's not about being bougie or having super high standards, but you do have to know who you are and what it is you're willing to maybe sacrifice or some of the things that you're willing to adjust. But I think if
Mhm.
you're going kind of having a certain sense of self, it's going to help you navigate things in a healthier way and then get you the results that you want. So do not
Yeah,
be afraid to know your worth.
absolutely. And then do you think that there's a difference between self-love and self-worth?
Yes.
Okay, what would you say the difference is then?
I have to think through it fast, but I would say that the love that you have for your, I think you can can you love yourself and not feel worthy?
I
Yeah.
think you can,
You
because
can,
you can,
right?
yeah, like you can love you but still not feel worthy of certain things,
Of
or not
certain
feel as
things.
though it's
Yeah.
possible for you.
Yeah, I feel like worth is I think worth, self-worth has so many other factors that play into how you feel about that, like whether it's your upbringing, the way your mom treated herself, not even how she treated you, but how you saw your mom treat herself, how you saw men treat your mother, how men have been treated you. I mean, there's just so much I feel like that goes into self-worth. So I
Mhm.
definitely believe that self-worth and self-love can be two different things. I don't think they're always a synonym for each other. I think at their best they are, but I think a lot of us can have self-love where you acknowledge that, hey, like I love myself, but I think
Mhm.
the worth is actually a deeper journey. I think it's easier to love yourself than to feel worthy at the same
I,
time,
I I agree completely with that.
right?
You can have the most love for yourself and not always feel worthy
Worthy,
of the
right? Isn't that
rest. Yeah.
interesting talking through it now? I
Yeah.
never thought about it until now, but it's really a thing. Like the worth part, I feel like takes a lot more continuous work. It's
Yes.
like once you kind of
Yes.
fall in love with yourself, you're kind of there, and then like you may kind of divert a little bit, but you never really get fully off track once you've fallen in love with yourself. But the worth one is like a constant muscle. It's like you got to work
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Like it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I have self worth and now it's here. There's always something I feel like chipping away at your self worth. So it's
Hmm.
like you're
Yeah.
always having to kind of renew and refresh and nurture the self worth. Yes, you do have to do that with self love, but I just feel like the self love is easier to cultivate.
Yeah, I feel love comes first, then comes worth.
Then
And it's
comes the
not
worth.
always too just about how your mother is treated, but it's also too how the male role models in your life, how they entreat you, how they handle you,
Mhm. That's a
whether
good
they
one.
keep their word with you, whether they show up for you when you need them, not if you need them, when you need them, because
Yeah.
you will need them. We are not islands. I think the piece about the worth, because we talked about, how I used to write out all my skills and be like, oh, I love that. Once you get the I love piece out of the way, the worthy piece and the worth piece comes in. What am I willing to accept? Because worthiness is simply about acceptance.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so
What
once you
is
get clear,
okay?
Yeah. So once you get clear on
Mm.
what you're willing to accept, that's how you start to further define, refine, and also communicate what your worth is to others. That to me is the adding tax.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the adding tax.
I love that. I love that. Speaking of adding tax, our pop culture healing and trauma segment is about the Grammys that just happened. Was like a week ago now, not too
About a
long
week
ago
ago.
around this time. Yeah. And it was a really interesting show. There were a lot of firsts on the show. There was like the first Afrobeat performance with Brandy and Burna Boy and I think 21 Savage. I caught some of it. I didn't catch all of it. Taylor Swift broke a record for the winning the most album of the year awards. She's won, this
Mhm.
is her fourth one. Meanwhile, our good sis Beyonce, who has the most Grammys, 32 to be exact, has never won album of the year. And her husband Jay Z was not quiet about it. He went up to accept the Dr. Dre Global Impact Award, and he gave a very just it was a speech that you could just tell he did not rehearse. It was off the cuff, and he was just like, "I'm just going to say what's on my mind." He said that when he's nervous, he tells the truth, and he commented on how strange and just frankly unfair it was that Beyonce has the most Grammys, and just even by their own standard, it makes no sense that she's never won Album of the Year. And I saw that and I just thought it was such a beautiful thing to see him speak up for her because she is really not big on, she does it in her music, but she doesn't really do it in that way. And it was nice to just see a man kind of be like, hey, this is not okay for this woman in my life. And it was just nice. I think in the media, we see so much of Black men and Black women kind of going at it. It was nice to see a Black woman protected in that moment. I liked seeing that. That was cool to me.
Yeah. For me, I always revert back to our feelings around being validated, where on the one hand, I get that validation is for parking. Whether or not you validate me in these ways, it's not stopping a check, or rising to the next level. It's not
Right.
stopping that. But then also on the flip side of that coin, it's like, but this is your industry, and this is one of the highest levels and awards in your industry.
Yeah.
And to be the most decorated, having the most, of your particular award, but not feeling I'm worthy of the highest honor. And with some of their governing bodies saying that they just don't like that, every time Beyonce does something, it's a big to do. So that right there is showing there's bias.
But
And so
do you think that we place as a community, the Black community, we place too much emphasis on it? Because it's like, why can't we have created our own, right, with BT and stuff like that, but for some reason the caliber doesn't seem to be there enough for artists to want to attend. Like how many times you watch the BT Awards and it's like, oh, such and such couldn't accept, is couldn't make it, this person will accept on their behalf. And it's just like, if the space is created for us to be honored, why don't we feel honored by our own people? Why do we feel like that's not good enough? It's like the BT Awards have been around and a lot of artists don't even go anymore. I just feel like there's this need to feel, like you said, that validation from the powers that be, who happen to be mostly white people. And I wish that we were just more okay. And I get what you're saying, that like this is what it is, and that's just the industry that they're in. The industry is governed mostly by white people. So that's just, this is, you want to play the game, like this is the game that you're playing in. These are the owners. But I just wish we had a little bit more autonomy and more desire to just kind of feel really appreciated within our own community, and that be enough.
I think you have to too look at how long, number one, the Grammys have been around versus the BET Awards. They haven't had the chance in terms of just longevity alone to be able to work through some of the kinks that the Grammys have had, not only with time, but also with financial backing and everything else. Like you have to,
That's
it's
another
not just
thing, is they definitely have the financial backing.
exactly like it's not just one aspect.
Yeah.
Um, and what, two or three or whichever number point I'm on, um, I do believe that it is okay to want to be acknowledged as the global phenom that you are, because it's the it's the you know how when like when you put a little twang in that, it's the underlying energy of it that's the problem. I don't think it's
For
the
sure.
problem about the, oh, I didn't win the award, because again, I promise that's not stopping a goddamn thing.
It's the
For
why. It's the
it's
why.
the why. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
I mean, yeah, I remember one year, I think it was like maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when Beyonce, she was nominated for Album of the Year for Lemonade, and Adele ended up winning it. And even Adele was her whole Grammy speech was like, I can't believe that you're not winning this award, right? Like that album brought me and my friends through so much. Like my Black girlfriends, like that album saved their life. Like, like, and I think she thought jokingly she was breaking the Grammy, and it actually broke in half. And she was like, this other half is for Beyonce. Like even artists are just like, this makes no sense. Like,
yeah.
and some of the things I know, I saw that Kelly Rowland said that Jay-Z's speech made so many artists feel seen and heard. So I love to see, and we had talked about something similar with Taraji, like, like it is the recognition is important. You're putting in the work, you're putting in the time. Like I said, for me, I just wish sometimes we just had a little bit more of our own things to feel
Mhm.
that same sense of accomplishment and acknowledgement too.
Yeah, I completely get it. I think it's something that we will just as a people will continue to have to work on,
Yeah.
because white validation is how we survived.
Yeah.
It's literally how we're still here, because it meant nothing to kill, maim, rape, destroy our bodies. So having white validation meant that you got to bring the next generation forth if you were a
Oh,
woman.
that is a really powerful point. That's like a podcast episode. Okay, let's jump into the actual episode, because we might have to bring that other one back that Alicia just talked about and talk through that. See you guys in the episode. So we are just going to dive right in. I am so excited to have this conversation. Alicia, you are always saying that it's important to be selfish. So for us to call in this wonderful episode just feels right on time. We're joined today by balance and relationship advisor, author, podcast host, Nikita Wren Thigpen. Thank you for coming to talk to us about being real, real selfish. We are excited about
Oh,
that.
thank you for hosting the space. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So, one of the things that we like to do with all of our guests, because you all do come with so many titles and accolades and all the things that you guys have accomplished with our prolific guest list, we like to ask, who do you say that you are outside of all of that?
That's a loaded question. So the simple "we're having tea inside my home" answer is I'm a human. I'm a healer. I'm an activator. That's my simple version. Um, Brushing my shoulder off credentials, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, trauma specialist, relationship expert, sexologist, metaphysician, and so many other things that I house under the umbrella title of balance and relationship advisor, because it really does kind of surmise what I do, who I do it with, and why I do it. I'm really trying to build stronger families and break generational curses. And the way that I do that is help you as an individual with your balance in all the ways that I mean it, not the way that people say it. Like there is no such thing as balance. It is. If I fall out this chair, I lost my balance. I did not lose my harmony. But outside of that, relationships are the things that impact us and shift us
Absolutely.
negatively or positively. So that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
house.
for sure. I always say one of the most important life decisions you'll ever make is who you decide to make your partner. So you want to make the choice well. And for me, I believe that in order to make good choices, especially when it comes to relationships, and even more so when you have so many competing priorities, is
Yes.
to be selfish. You cannot show up well in life, in your
Mhm.
relationships, as a parent, in my belief, because I don't
That's
like to speak in so many exactitudes, although for me I believe that's an exactitude all across the board, if
yeah.
you are not willing to be selfish. But how can folks make room to be intentionally selfish when you have
Yeah.
all the things, like all the things to do?
Yeah, I love your language because it's so me. So let me say that all the things. It's first removing that kind of patriarchal definition of what selfish is, right? Like a lot of us get caught up in the Oxford or Webster dictionary of selfish. If you're religious, I'm a minister, so I get it. That's one of my other hats that I didn't mention, but we're taught because of the way that the Bible has been translated, depending on what your spiritual and religious beliefs are, that you're not supposed to be selfish. But it's going off of a definition that was literally meant to keep women bound, literally from the 1600s.
Amen.
Oh, you don't want to give your husband whatever he wants when he wants it, and you should be so lucky to be cuffed up, then you are being selfish. That's literally how it got into our lexicon. So once I became, my nerd hat was on and I became aware of the ideology of the world. First of all, I'm a feminist. I'm a Black woman feminist. I was like, oh, you thought so? Like you thought that's what we were going to do? My husband of almost 30 years, I wish he would. I wish he would project onto me what his wants are and not incorporate the fact that I'm a human and I have my own needs, so I don't resent him in the process. So I looked at it and I looked at how we as women are also shaming each other with this word. Oh, you couldn't come to my 5th divorce party, and girl, we've been friends since 30 years. You selfish. Oh, you can't fly out 4 hours to meet me for brunch for an hour because I want to entertain the fact that I know you. You're selfish. Like we do these things to each other. So I looked at it and was like, well, how do we reclaim our power? How do we do it? Not just as women, but us first, but how do we reclaim our power with it?
Yeah.
So I redefined it as an intentionally selfish thing that you give yourself when you're trying to make sure you have a personal, intimate gift of joy to create anything that you want the way that you want it. It's really about creating the spaciousness for your healing, for your forgiveness work, for your mani-pedi, for you to wiggle your toes, for you to have an orgasm, like whatever it is that you want to do. That's what being intentionally selfish is about. So you can put you first. And when you're giving and overflowing to everyone that you love, everyone that you want to serve in business, out of business, and everything in between, you can do it without resenting them. Because otherwise, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be the human, mom, soccer mom, whatever, being in a place where you were invited, you said yes to because you fawned your yes, you defaulted in because you didn't want to hurt someone's feeling, or reserve the fact that they have an expectation on you feel like you have to submit to. And now you're there thinking, oh, I got to cook this. I got to get ingredients for this. I have to do this other thing. Oh my God, I forgot to type, email, send, sign something. And you're not fully present. And then you're dealing with the guilt of not being present. Then you're dealing with the shame of the secret that they thought you was there when you really wasn't, because your mind and your spirit was somewhere else. So to avoid that and show up fully for all the people that you would jump in front of a truck for, you have to. It is a mandate, a prescription. You have to be intentionally selfish.
I know. We interrupted at the best part, but hear me out.
Dating should not be this hard. Let's be honest. We've all said it at least once that the dating pool has pee in it.
It has to. After dozens of dates, too many failed relationships, engagements, marriages, and even a divorce, we decided it was crucial that we find ways to be better at attracting the partners that we desire. So we did just that, and we created the Dating Well AF course.
It's specifically designed to show women how to date with intention and in alignment with their desired type of lifestyle and experience. The 5-module crash course developed by certified coaches Alicia and Danny provides practical tools to date well and live even better.
So I want you to register now for lifetime access to the Dating Well AF course at datingwellaf.com. You will tap all the way in to learn how to identify those self-sabotaging behaviors, discover new ways to date intentionally, and to nurture that healthy love.
Remember, one of the most important life decisions you will ever make is who you decide to make your partner. Make the choice well and visit datingwellaf.com.
Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of women, especially if you get married and you take on a whole household, there's this idea that it's just gonna like click and everything is just gonna fall into place and you're just gonna know how to do all the things. And mothers typically struggle with putting themselves first, and
Yeah.
they struggle with that guilt and that shame
Mhm.
that you just talked about.
Mhm.
How can they start to shift their mindset to free themselves, right, from that
Yeah.
guilt and that fear and that shame that sometimes, as a mom, a fairly new mom at that, that comes with prioritizing themselves and becoming more selfish? Like, how do they even start to move through that? Because it's one of like, oh, I'm going to be more selfish, but what does that really even look like?
Yeah. And of course, it's bespoke, like it's customized to whatever your context is. But
Yeah.
you start with coming into your body. It's where I bring every single client. Come into your body. Your body will tell you the truth. It is where your trauma is stored. It is also where your joy lives. It is in your body. So if you can just start with a 30-second body scan at the top of every morning, you don't even have to be out of the bed fully. Because I understand, especially if you're a breastfeeding mama or you got the baby up in the bed because you couldn't, right? Like all the things while you're laying there, before you open your eyes, from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, check in. How do I feel? Is anything throbbing, aching, shaky, unsteady? Do I feel a tingle? Uh-oh, distracted thought coming in. All right, I hear you. Let me come to my heartbeat, bring me back into my body, and continue to scan, because your body really does tell you, oh, I'm having some issues in my stomach. Are you anxious? Are you stressed? Are you having issues in your lower back? Are you worried about money? Like, your body literally can tell you exactly what's going on. And it takes a while to familiarize yourself if you're like most of us, platinum Olympic champions of compartmentalizing, right? I don't have time to cry. Got to do this other thing. I don't have time to yell. Got to do this other thing, right? Like, we keep
Right. That's like
compartmentalizing.
built into the Black woman's DNA. Like, that's just what we do.
Anybody got
Oh,
time for this? I gotta focus on this. Anybody got time for that?
absolutely.
I gotta do this. Yeah.
It's like if there was a platinum Olympic medal, we would have it, right? Like, for
Yes.
all the reasons. And there's a place for it. It could be such a amazing tool in our
Mhm.
armor kit to use, because there are moments when we do not have time for a breakdown. Get the baby up off the floor, take it to the hospital, get an x-ray because it bumped his head, whatever the case is. Like, sometimes
Yeah.
you have to, but that should be an exception, not the rule. And we've
Mhm.
made it an embedded DNA, to your point, rule in our bodies, which is why we have to come back and let's recalibrate and
Yeah.
rewire. And it
Yeah.
starts with us, and then we can listen. You know what would make me just feel like I have a moment to breathe? You know what? I need 5 minutes in the bathroom without the door open. If you got toddlers, right? Like, they're like, I want privacy with you. Like, there's no such thing as privacy when your kids are at a certain age, or other humans in your home are a certain age. If you need 5 minutes, start there. You were selfish enough to give yourself privacy. If you need a little bit more, I'm not someone who recommends numbing. Like, wine is great. I love wine too, but you don't want to use it if you feel like you need it. So that's my rule for anything. If I say I need a glass of wine, let me go drink some coconut water, keep it cute, right? Like, let me do something different because I need it. That's a problem. I want it. I want to socialize. I want to sit with my boo. I want to sit with me. I want to enjoy letting Netflix watch me, whatever the case is, that's
Yeah.
fine. But that's a really good separation. And it's the same rule that you can use with your relationships, whether romantic or platonic. If I feel like I need to call my good girlfriend from 10 years to discuss this issue, well, let me check in with me. Why do I feel like I need to talk to her? Because I'm not thinking about her, right? I'm thinking about me. If I want to talk to her, if I want to have my lover stay with me, even though we're in conflict, that's different than I need to stay with them because how else we gonna pay these bills? Like,
Mhm.
that is such a challenge. And you can use that, we like to say, from the bedroom to the boardroom. You can use it in your
Mhm.
romantic, platonic, or even in your professional relationships, as well as the projects you take. How can I be selfish with not saying yes to too many things? Well, is this thing going to pay my bill if I say yes? No.
Mm.
There you go. Is this thing sleeping with me? No.
Ooh.
Right? The same rules that I give with explaining myself.
Mhm.
Is this explanation going to guarantee that you're going to pay my bill, pay that contract, sign that, whatever? Oh, then you
Yeah.
don't need an explanation. You just need to hear, no, that doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
That
Oh,
part.
right. I don't sleep with you. You don't sleep with me. You don't need an explanation of why can't you come? Why can't you attend? Oh, I really want you. I said, no, that doesn't work for me. With love, of course. I'm not being mean about it. You don't want to
Right.
be in your ego. That's old selfish. When you're just like, oh, get away from me. I'm trying to
Just
protect
being
myself.
nasty. Yeah.
Don't be
Yeah.
nasty. No, you guys could have easily said, hey, Nikita, we're not able to do this today. We can do this tomorrow because of, various schedules that you might have, your business clients and everything else. And I could have said, no, that doesn't work for me. And you'd be like, all right, well, I guess she don't want to be on triggered AF then, right? Like, and then we both have the option, or we all
Yeah.
have the option to move forward or not. But a lot of the times we have a hard time with the guilt and the shame because we default into this expectation that I call expired, when we're like, I have to explain myself, I have to give, they're going to reject me, from this or a future thing if I don't. We get
Yeah.
all in our head in this
Yeah.
analysis paralysis loop where we're just going over things. And most people, as you beautiful, brilliant women know, don't care. They
No.
don't care about your why. They want what they want, and they either get
They
it or
want
they
it
don't,
now.
and they move on, right? So why
Yeah.
aren't we doing the same thing? Why aren't we like,
Mm.
this doesn't work for me. Here's another option. No explanation for anything else in between. I need some time to sit in the bathroom by myself, which was my default as a parent with young kids. They're 27 and 23 now, but when they were younger, you couldn't breathe without somebody being up your behind. And when you don't have children and you have a lot of responsibilities or
Yeah.
caregiving, for those that are listening to the show that might be in the sandwich generation, that might have parents that they're kind of taking to doctor's appointments and all the other things with or without your own kids, there's a lot of heaviness that can come, and you will be worn down, and someone will give you one or two phone calls while you're in the hospital for the month that you're there, saying, oh, girl, you should have been more selfish, when you
Yep.
can do it now for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You spoke about I need and I want. Those two words for
Mhm.
so many people, they feel like they're interchangeable, like they're synonymous when they are not. So that we could, better calculate and evaluate what that is. What is that like mathematical formula? Because I've always been a girly that doesn't believe in balance, because I'm like, to me, balance, that means they have to kind of be weighted equally. And so I would love to hear, like, okay, so then what is the mathematical formula that allows you to create balance and even joy in like each
Yeah.
aspect and area of your life?
Yeah, nerd hat on, right? Like, put your nerd hat on me for me, because I am a polymath, and I'm a super nerd, unfortunately for my children, my adult children that think I'm so uncool. So it's T like the letter truth over B
Okay.
like the letter boy. So it's
TB.
alphabet TB, T over B.
Mhm.
The T, and this is the formula for balance, for any kind of balance anywhere in your life, your business, your relationships, and everything in between.
Mhm.
The T is you being able to admit the truth of what you really want, not what you need. We need shelter. We
Yeah.
need safety. We need food. Just assume that the needs are understood. We need our partner to respect us. We need our partner to hear us, right? Like, assume that
Yeah.
the needs of a healthy sense of self are
Mhm.
understood. Relationship,
Okay.
business, all the things.
Mhm.
Then the B is your boundaries, the boundaries that you will create to achieve that truth as your reality. So, this is how I stay in balance. If I say, my truth is I am going to heal 100,000 people over my lifetime from impacting their children with their generational curses, and not just children, their legacy, because your legacy could be your business, your projects, your philanthropy, your altruistic endeavors. It's not just physical children, right? Like, we birth out many things, and it's not always a human, but let's
That
just
part.
assume that part. We don't want to carry over the drama and default survival modes that we had from years and years and years. Epigenetics says 14 generations of trauma live in your cell before you are born. So let's just assume that we
Goodness.
14.
14 generations in your DNA. So when we have people say, why y'all care about slavery, right? Like, why y'all care? 14 generations is up in here before I came out. And before
Oh
you
my
took your
goodness.
first breath. So there's all of that. And you can't necessarily erase generational trauma, but you can give new core memory, give new good rewiring that helps to lessen the impact of that. So eventually, 14 generations from now, and that's just what we know by science. Maybe it's more than 14 generations. Some studies say 7, most are saying there's evidence that there's 14. But if I say that my truth is I want to heal 100,000 people before I take my last breath off this earth, so they can create these new multi-generational imprints from your own individual self-actualized wholeness, that means Nikita Ren Thigpen has to be whole. Nikita Ren Thigpen can't bring all of her sexual abuse into the forefront and put it on her kids and put it on her grandkids and so on and so forth. Nikita Ren Thigpen can't look at all the betrayal and the abandonment of her parents and the drug and alcohol abuse and in and out of prison and all the things that they went through and say, oh, well, my life was this, so you lucky you got food today, right? Like Nikita Ren Thigpen today that wants to continue to be a healer and an activator has to look at, how do I become whole? Because my truth, what I really want, not just what I need, is to heal all these people and create these ripples. So that means it's going to be challenging because it's awkward and it is uncomfortable and everybody not going to ride with you. But that means I have to put boundaries around different areas of my life in order for me to achieve that as a reality, or at least what they say, shoot for the stars, land on the moon, at
Right.
least get as close to it as possible. So boundaries are five permission zones is what I consider them. There's a boundary around your personal habits. I got to be healthy. I got to hydrate. I got to eat right. I got to eat energy food, right? Food that gives me energy. I have to have some kind of movement, no matter what kind of, computerized day that I had. I got to get up. I got to stretch. These hips have to work for more than just the bedroom, right? Like they have to carry me into my truth. That part, I saw a girl that, it has to carry me into my truth. So I need some boundaries around that, meaning I need to make commitments. So when I have a friend that wants to kick it, or I have a client that is having a pseudo emergency, because there are no emergencies in personal development, but a pseudo emergency in the area, I have to look at, hold on, did you hit that Peloton this morning? Did you take the dog for a walk? Whatever it is for me around my personal habits. And some of those responses that normal Kia, little Kia in me, the inner child, wants to run and people please, run and fix, run and do. I have to have a boundary around that. I have to have a boundary around my spiritual center, because for me personally, that's what guides me forward to my calling. That's what I hear telling me I need to lean in, which means I need time to sit with God.
Yeah.
I got to be intentionally selfish about that. I love you, honey. I want to talk to you for hours a day. Sometimes we will kick it. Not right now, because I didn't get fueled. And if I don't get fueled, you're going to get angry, Nikita. That's not who you want. And angry Nikita might look too close to South Philly Key, right? Like it might just look a little.
So take you back to the old you,
right? Oh, which,
yeah.
for all of us, there's a warrior in us that was there that had to help you survive whatever your life circumstance were. Not everybody has abuse and all the things, but for whatever your childhood incidences were, you had something to help you survive. But that same thing will smother and stifle your dreams if you're not careful to let him or her or them grow up. So I had to let South Philly Key grow up. Be clear. The warrior is still in there. So let somebody come against my grandbabies or
Run
one
up
of my
your
people.
gun up.
Like, listen, all of it, but only when it's necessary, not
Only
just
when.
because of a survival default to kick in because somebody in the next car made me angry or they didn't run the light correctly or any of those things. So it's really having boundaries around all those different areas. And there's a couple of more, but just to keep it brief, you just need to make sure that you have them expansive enough so you can enjoy your life and not so tight that they're really there to push people away, because then you can't get to your truth either. So it is a balancing game, but not in a 50-50, 60-40, 70-30 type way.
Yeah, it's kind of what, like Danny, with what you say, boundaries should be what, gates, not walls. I believe that's your quote.
Yeah. I always say that because I just feel like some of these terms, and you've kind of alluded to, I can hear based on your verbiage that you have come across so many people that use some of these buzzwords.
Come on.
Right, and they don't fully understand what they mean, and I think social media and things like that kind of makes everyone an expert, and that's why, and which I think in some ways is so beautiful that everyone is curious and interested in trying
Yeah.
to find, like there seems to be some like a
Yeah.
like a grand awakening in ways.
Yeah.
However, I don't think there is as much real, true, pure guidance through this process,
Mhm.
and we need it so much. So I'm saying all that to say it's like we hear these words: boundaries, toxic, narcissist, like all the things thrown at us, and it's just like, yeah, but what does that mean? And then we end up going from one extreme to the next.
Come on.
And you're like, so at first when I had boundaries, I just felt like I was like, no, I don't do that. I don't say that. I'm not tolerating that. And then I felt like it was coming from such an ego-based
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
and I
Fear.
was like, yeah, exactly. Because now you're just like, clank, clank, I gotta protect myself.
Mhm.
And then I was like, yeah, that's not working either,
Right.
So then I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I need to kind of be a little bit more fluid in these boundaries and understand there does need to be some flexibility. So I
Yeah.
do say that, my boundaries are more like gates and not walls. Like it's clear that I
Mhm.
have this up. However,
Mhm.
if I need to lift that gate, if I need to move it, if I need to let you in, I still have
Yes.
that ability. I think we're using boundaries more as walls to keep people out and protect ourselves. And based on especially what you're saying for that formula, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's also going to make you feel, which is the other epidemic that's happening in the world right now, very lonely, right?
Oh, yes.
And loneliness is real. Whether
Yes.
you have a business, you are a creative in business, you are a professional, an executive professional, and a business owner, right? Like all the what they call it, multi hyphenated,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
multi hyphenated or multi hyphenated human.
Mhm.
You can have all these things and it becomes like the wine that I was, using as an example. You're
Yeah.
numbing. I was talking to my brother actually in real life. I'm the oldest of five. And I was talking to my baby brother earlier about some challenges he was having. And I was like, don't numb. It's like taking Tylenol when you have an infection. Yes, it'll help with the body aches and some of maybe the throbbing that you're having, like a sinus
Mhm.
infection, but it's
Yeah.
not going to cure it. That thing still might become septic and literally break down your organs. So you
That
have to
part.
be really mindful about what you're using to numb yourself, which for many ambitious women is the codependency on achieving, right? Like all this, let me
Mhm.
do these 25 things and get it done because you good, right? You got it done. But
You
what
can
you
do
didn't
it.
do was enjoy your life. You didn't
Mm.
take any breaks. You didn't go into nature. You didn't hear your body. You didn't even hear your own thoughts because all you were hearing was dopamine check, 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 which
Stop
is,
talking about me. Dang.
listen, you know why I can talk about
Mind
it?
your business.
Been there, wore a t shirt and a ball cap to that party in every color. So I
Oh.
understand. And it wasn't healthy. I wasn't living.
Hmm. Dang, you talking bad about me. I literally was whew. One of my girlfriends, she works with me. Because both of our kids right now are going to the same homeschool co-op. And so she'll
Nice.
work with me in the car because I go to the park and I literally take like all meetings, do all the things from the park in my car. I call it my little spaceship. And she said in her nice little way one day, she was like, "You don't even take a break." And I'm like, "Well, I have a to-do list that's this long." And I
Mhm.
told my sister, I was just like, "I have things to do. Well, how come nobody understands this?" And then you just told me off in just the most
With love.
eloquent way. It was with love. I didn't feel offended at all. I was just like, "Ooh,
Always love.
okay."
He was
I
like,
mean,
okay, Nikita, I'm gonna talk to you after this. Like I
heard
heard it.
you. I heard you. Listen, I'm a little baby who gonna listen sometimes. I heard you.
Yeah. No, that's a really good example. So one of my Danny, I think you used the word wake up. One of my wake up moments, which I try not to give them too much credit because it goes to their head. But my now 23-year-old was about 8 or 9. We were sitting at the dinner table. My kids are almost 4 years apart. And she said, Mommy, you are so awesome. And I said, oh, thank you. Now, I'm working in an emergency room, doing all these jobs and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, thank you. And she was like, for everybody else except me.
Oh,
I said, excuse you. Now, context for everyone listening to this and not watching, I am a Black mother. okay, raised by a grandmother. So need I say, there was a part of me that was proud she was speaking up, the new age parent in me, and the old school parent was, who are you talking to? Right?
Right.
You know, that
That is
energy,
a constant struggle. Constant struggle.
A
constant struggle,
whole, it's a battle.
a
Yeah.
whole battle. Because,
Yeah.
you know, we've learned how to be more gentle parents, but
I don't know how
there's
I feel
some
about that
moments.
phrase.
I know. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. It's such a new age term for not soft parenting, but passive parenting, which is a whole
Whole
other
other
episode.
conversation.
Whole other
Right.
episode. But I had, I took a beat, took a breath, and was like, "What do you mean?" Now my son and my husband were sitting there eating, looked down at their plates like we weren't there because they didn't want to be a part of this conversation. I think my husband had a little cue of where it was going. And I said, "What do you mean?" My daughter's name is Messiah. I was like, "What do you need? What do you mean?" She was like, "Because mom, like you're not helping me with all my stuff. Daddy helps me with my homework." And I'm like, "Girl, we drive you into the city for school in Center City an hour each way every day. You got jazz, you got tap, you got ballet, you got soccer, you got this, we got tennis. You doing all the things. I'm with
That's
you
a
all the
lot.
time when I'm not at work or in school." Because I think around
Yeah.
that time I was doing my master's degree too. And she said, "Yeah, but you're not like the other parents. The other parents are like glued in and watching us. You're on your, remember the Palm Pilots? I know I'm dating myself a little bit.
Yeah, I remember those.
And the Blackberries." She's
Oh
like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I had me one too.
right? You're on your pallet, and because I was working in the hospital, the pagers, you're doing all that stuff, and you're not even watching me. And she was right. I was literally there with my body, but I wasn't there in my mind because I
Present.
had all these things. Yes, present. I had all these things that honestly had to get done. There were things that her little mind could understand. Like I'm doing sexual assault response team. Like there's a lot of like really important things that were happening, but none of them were as important as who I was doing them for, which was my family. And I had to really look at that. Now I'm stubborn, I'm willful, and I can be very rebellious. So it took me a minute to catch up to this life moment that was happening. I would love to say, like, in that moment, I changed everything. I did not, Alicia. Like, it did not. I was like, I hear you. Okay, my ego is bruised. I'm hurt. But I needed a moment to swallow and process what that would mean for me. This
Yeah.
difference that I was working so hard to give my kids, to give them everything, my husband and I both, to give them everything that we did not have. I was sacrificing who I really wanted to be in their lives. And in my own way, I was a twilight version of my mother who abandoned me. She was somewhere else physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, in all the ways. And although I was physically there and they were physically safe, I was emotionally absent. Like I wasn't as present as I could be. So I don't know if that helps everyone listening or you individually, but it
Yeah,
was
for sure.
really a serious moment for me.
Yeah, and the children will do that to you, won't they? Like
Mhm.
they will just look at you and just
Kids.
read you and be like, "Yeah, no, that's not working." Because I am not a gentle parent at all, but I do try to be an intentional one,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I do receive and accept that your children are here not to guide you, but to teach you things.
Yes.
That's not the same thing, Chef.
That's right. That's
I don't know.
right.
They're
We
not
we not
guide.
friends. Mhm.
I'm not your little friend. I don't
They
care.
haven't. They
I don't
haven't.
care what
They're
nation we in. I'm not your
children.
little friend.
Yeah,
That.
yeah, you're not guiding me to anything, but you can teach me, right?
Mhm.
And you can
Right.
show me things that I may have a blind spot in.
Mhm.
And I think that that is one of the greatest things. If you can be open to receiving that from them,
Mhm.
it is beautiful. So I definitely try to like keep that in mind too, where I know my little toddler is about to get to that stage and I have that like old school, new school parent conflict. And I'm just like, but I know that I want that, right? And there's so many. I think I love to see now that there are so many mothers, especially Black mothers, trying to work on themselves and
Yeah.
heal themselves so that they can show up. And a lot of times, especially for moms, especially if you're in a relationship, you can feel like being selfish is a bad thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Relationships,
Mhm.
like we talked about being a mother, but what about being a wife, being a girlfriend, being in a romantic relationship, right? Like
Yes.
we sometimes not only feel guilty, but you feel like, oh, that is just wrong. Like it's flat out just wrong. It's not allowed. It's bad. It
Yeah.
makes you a man eater. It makes, like, you know what I mean? Like so many negative connotation from what you even spoke about from the 1600s. It still permeates today on
Yes.
so many levels. But you actually say something like, you feel like selfish lovers are actually like better. Like,
Yes, they're stronger.
yeah, so why or how do selfish lovers actually become forever lovers and live more
Yeah.
peaceful lives? Because I'm very curious to hear that breakdown. I've never
So
heard that ever.
I like to use a visual example, especially for people who just need something like a little bit more tangible.
Okay.
I'm assuming most of the listeners are in this space in their life where they are trying to move forward and do bolder, more daring, braver things in whichever way, personally, professionally, all the things. So, assuming that 99.9% of the people listening to this right now actually like to look good. And I don't mean overdone injectables, any of that, but just physically look good. If you got to walk in a room and you're about to be on a panel or you're going to be on a stage, you don't want to necessarily wear the t-shirt with the hole in it unless that was intentional, right? Like you want to really feel good in your clothes and your body. You want your hair to look good, your skin to look good, all the things. If you don't take the time to individually look good, and whatever that looks like for you, wash your face, put on deodorant, all the things, and you walk up on to the stage of all these other people who took time to do the thing so they could show up physically feeling confident, there's a part of you that's dimming yourself when you have to talk, right? Because you almost don't want the microphone. You almost don't want the shine. You're like, oh, I didn't have time to do this. I didn't have time to do that. When we are like that in our relationships, we play small, right? For my husband and I have been friends since 13, dating since 17, married since 22. We've been together a long, long, long time, right?
That's so
Wow.
many versions of yourself you've had to grow through, go through, stay
Wow.
together through.
Oh,
Wow.
yes, we grew up together, like literally, like all the things. And I am, with love, a piece of work, right? Like right? Like know thyself. Piece
I'm a
of
lot.
work. A whole lot. The cup that I got from a conference that I'm holding, it looks messy because of my lipstick, but it's a perfect example. It says, if I'm too much, go find less, right? And I carried that energy, not the statement, but the energy of that with me, which was protective energy for many years of our early part of our relationship. If I got any fume from him that was, oh, you being too much, I was like, oh, I'm too much? Is team too much over here? Well, then you know where you could go, right? Like I was and he had to manage because he's very alpha. And unfortunately for him, I'm very alpha too. So he had to manage what this looked like when I was being so team too much because I was in my ego, not in my body, not in a
Yeah.
balanced state, not doing my mindfulness practices, didn't go to therapy that week, whatever the case was that I needed to do for myself. And he had to like look at himself and all the things he had to do for him to decide, do I still want this? Is this something I want? It wasn't until, and I don't remember exactly the day, I feel like our kids were still toddlers. He said, you need a hobby. You need to do something else. Now, mind you, I got 3, 4 jobs. I'm in either master's or doctorate or one of the 5,000 things that I was doing to numb, right? Like all the things, check boxes, dopamine checks. I have all these things going on. And he actually had the audacity to tell me to add something else to my plate. But the reason he was saying it, and he did expand on it, was because everything that I was doing was for other people. I wasn't doing anything for me. So the resent that I didn't know at the time was resentfulness that was bubbling up, and I was projecting and vomiting onto him every time he didn't put the cup in the right place, right? Like anytime he did something, we know those moments. Oh, you left your shoe here. You did this. Now I'm acting like the world is falling down because of it. It's because you're not being intentionally selfish. So you're projecting all the things that are frustrating to you onto these very tiny, insignificant moments. And now you're blowing up and having arguments over who ordered chicken versus rice and all the things that don't matter. But if you take the time for yourself, not only do you feel good and your cup gets fueled and you're all juicy, I mean that in every way. You're all juicy. Your estrogen goes up, your libido goes up, your cortisol comes down, your oxytocin goes up. Like you literally, especially as a woman, you get so tingly and energetically orgasmic by yourself that when your lover comes along and wants to touch you, wants to hold you, wants to kiss your neck while you're at the computer, you over there chopping tomatoes, he want to rock with you behind you, whatever it is, you're not doing the thing that we do when we are filled with a lot of cortisol and everything's, our adrenal fatigue is happening and everything's out of whack and we're like, get off me, get out of here, what are you doing, right? Like we're not giving that energy, which now sets the tone for a beautiful evening, a very beautiful week, and a deeper intimacy physically, sexually, emotionally, recreationally, aesthetically, because there are 12 different types of intimacy. Like it really does put you in the mood. And bonus, your partner feels safe. They feel heard. They feel seen. They feel appreciated. They feel validated. They are edified and desired. Why? Because you was intentionally selfish. Like, how much better can that be? Now add your partner doing that for yourself. Y'all gonna have babies that you didn't want to name Nikita that was coming out because you heard it and you were like, she done made me have 8 more kids. Whatever that looks like, because it's so juicy and so good, especially when both of you choose yourselves. It makes everything better.
Now I'm gonna apply this to my next relationship, but it won't be no more babies. I'm just gonna let you know now, not for me. Okay, not
legacy babies, Alicia. You know, new business, legacy baby, new podcast, legacy baby. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think so many women need to hear that because for whatever reason, we do need permission to do all the things. So here is your permission. If you've been waiting for it, here is the sign. Here is the confirmation, the affirmation, all the things that you need to feel in your spirit. This is it. This is the time to just start taking care of yourself. So many of us, especially Black women, we pour from empty cups and we just think that's how it is because that's how it's always been and that's our norm. It's time to redefine that norm, I think. And I love having these conversations where we talk about what it starts to look like. Because I think, again, more buzzwords like the soft life era, right? And it's just like, yeah, but what does that really mean? You know, like let's start to put things into context so that we can actually apply them and see the benefit. Not like apply them and feel guilty or feel less than because you're comparing yourself to the other woman who seems to have it all figured out. None of us have it all figured out. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think if we try to do it together, we'll go further, right? Together. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and for dropping these gems on us and our audience. But before you go, we want to have a little bit of fun. We have a rapid fire segment. So we want you to just answer the first thing that comes to mind. They're super fun, like questions. Okay. And the first one is, what is the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Becoming an entrepreneur, hands down. Hands down.
We believe you.
Why? You have to be a little bit crazy, I feel like. Just a wee bit crazy to agree to be an entrepreneur. Like you got to be a little off in the head. Just a little bit.
You do. And willing to learn more. I learned more about myself in 2011 when I stepped into entrepreneurship as full-time, 100% invested, all my energy, all of my money, like all of the things, than I had known in 3+ years of therapy. And therapy is good and important. I am biased, but yes, everybody, including therapists, should have therapy. But I didn't realize I had confidence issues until I became an entrepreneur, because now I'm not walking in representing a company. I'm representing moi, right? And my brand. Oh, you didn't like my service? Wait, I designed that. I created, right? Like you it's very, the rejection is real. And so are the pariahs. And there were a lot of things that you can't physically, fist fight your way through now that you're a business owner. And so I had to learn a new skill set. It was very, very, very jarring, but the most beautiful thing I could have ever done for my life.
That's dope. That is dope. So then what would you say, especially since it's such a learning curve when you decide to become an entrepreneur, because folks just don't understand. Hell, you barely understand when you first become an entrepreneur. What would you say is the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Something in the line of the hustle culture mantras of you can sleep when you're dead, or you just gonna have to work 18 hours a day. Like all of that don't value the fact that you got one body. And as
Mhm.
soon as that one body is no longer available, everything shuts down. But you
Everything.
assume that you'll have this same body tomorrow, and that is not the case. Every single piece of advice that was related to that the myth of hustle culture, it was a destroyer.
Mm.
Mm, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Oof, especially for women, our bodies are just not really designed like that. And we're so many of us are learning the hard way, I believe, with things like fibroids, with things like different kinds of cancers that are coming, like way more than they ever have historically. I think so much of it is energetic, and comes from this weight that we now have to carry
Yeah.
due to that kind of a hustle culture. And I don't know if anybody's known this. I like to tell every woman this, but I don't know if y'all know this, but Black women have always worked in this country. Like, like I know the white woman had to fight real, real hard to do that, but like we've
Mhm.
been doing that. Like
Yes.
so it's time for us to just like
To
take
take a
a break.
moment. I call myself, and many of my clients privately identify, we are lazy overachievers, right? Like I'm clearly overachiever. Like my accomplishment speaks for itself, and I don't need to, bring them up unless somebody is being real special. Because every once in a while, you got to pull that card. You know what I mean? But outside of that, I'm like, I love my lazy. I feel like it's a meter. It allows me to honor my need for rest and recalibration and inner work, like all the things. And when there's a time for a sprint or a season for a sprint, I sprint and I run as fast and as hard as I can, knowing that on the other side of that, I'm going to celebrate myself, I'm going to reward myself, and usually with some rest, whatever that looks like, spas, naps,
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever.
It's important. Yeah.
What's something you wish you were better at?
Mm. I wish I was better at being spontaneous. If like
Ooh.
free word association first thought, because I am such a planner. And
Mhm.
my control issue with that is clearly coming from not having control as a child and all the abuses and all the traumas and all the things. And so I know where it comes from. I understand it, and it's still really hard. Like you can't pop up at my house. You just can't do it. You're not going to get in. And it doesn't matter. You'd be like, I'm 8 months pregnant and I gotta pee. Why didn't you pee before you got here? Like, what made you drive here to come to this door unannounced? Like, I'm very, I can be unfortunately very rigid when it
Mm.
comes to spontaneous, unplanned things that are not an emergency.
Mm.
Super quick to react in an emergency and we'll shut down everything for it. But if it's not an emergency and you just feel entitled to my access or my presence, I wish I was a little bit better with that.
Okay, okay. So then what then would you say never fails to make you laugh?
Oh, I'm so silly. This is horrible. But you said first word. I'm going to be
First
transparent.
word.
You said first
We
thing.
don't judge on this podcast. Well, maybe sometimes we do. But
Your
that's okay.
mom,
We're not gonna judge
you
this one.
might. I love to see when like little kids fall or they like not hurt themselves, but when they're just, because they're walking, they're doing their thing and they just fall. It's the most hilarious thing in the world. I love to see it. It makes me laugh every time. I know that that's horrible. I almost want you to cut it out, but
No, no, no.
No, I also find that very funny.
It's
As long as
hilarious.
they're not hurt, I'm just like, are you okay?
right. I want you to be safe, but that was hilarious.
Especially when they head so big and so they go first. Like what they
Yes.
because they can't
Yes.
balance because they head so damn big. It's like, dang, I know your
Or
mama
it's
too
like they
slow.
have two left feet. Like, why did you just trip? Like, what just happened? Like, what just happened? I have an almost 3-year-old, so I am. You would love it over here. You'd be cracking up all day. Because she just has two left feet and she is just tripping over her damn self. And I'm like, what? How did that happen?
I love it. I really do believe that kids are like walking in multiple dimensions, like from the
They
metaphysical,
are.
they can
Yes.
see and feel and sense. And sometimes I think they thought they were on this earth, but then the other part of their foot was somewhere else. Like
That's
just
a good
little,
way. I never thought about
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, these kids are brilliant. They're socially inept. They don't know how to communicate, but they are brilliant.
Yes, they are.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they're younger, because they're still so connected to source. Like I remember my daughter when she was younger, she would have full on conversations with the ethos. And it was so, it's going to sound crazy. It was so gnarly. I know that's not a word that most Black folks use, but it was so gnarly
Yeah.
watching her communicate with things that just were not there. And she's having like full on experiences with them. And I would
Yep.
just be like, dang, you ain't even here, are you? As long as you, and it's funny, we had a conversation previously. And so I now use that. As long as you eventually anchor yourself back in this dimension,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
you're not having psychotic breaks because
Right.
you're operating
Wow.
in multiple dimensions.
Mhm.
We cool, we Gucci. As long as you
Absolutely.
come back.
Right, right. I can back down here where we are. Now I
Right.
agree. Both of my grandbabies, they're 5, and my granddaughter will be 6 next week at the time of this recording. They both have ASD. They're on the autism spectrum disorder spectrum. I said spectrum twice, but you know what I mean. And they're at different ends. So my granddaughter is moderate severe. My grandson is more severe. He also has sickle cell. So there's like a lot of layers and complications. But I will say, especially for both of them, they have languages that I do believe that humans that are on the spectrum can tap into different parts of their brain that most of us can't, which sometimes I feel like overwires the social connected part that we all use as kind of transmission communication for knowing that this is right or this is acceptable, where they might be a little bit more challenged by it. But I was posting, a happy birthday. He had just turned 5 on the 21st at the time of this recording. And I was mentioning his own language because I do feel like we are just not brilliant enough to understand it. But they, to your point, they're in another space when you don't have to have, a neurodivergent disorder to be that brilliant as a child. But I do think that they're in a whole nother realm. And he will talk for hours. We don't understand nothing he's saying, but we'll be like, right? Tell me more. Like, yes, let me learn, let me become trilingual, like let me figure this out, because they are they're a different breed until like 9, when middle school and all the things hit, and then they
They come
become
fully into their bodies then.
fully in.
Like full awareness,
Yeah.
usually by like 9, 10. There's like a light switch that they're kind of like, okay, I'm done with this whole metaphysical piece.
Yeah.
Now, we love this conversation, but we also want to make sure that our audience can stay tapped in with you and connected with you. So where can we find you? Where can people connect with you? How do we do that?
The first place is always our website, which is thigpro.com. It's like my last name, THIGPRO.com. Everything there, from the Women's Self-Care Guild mentorships that we offer to private advisory for power couples and what I call potent humans, which is women. That's my name for us because we are potent and amazing. Our podcast is also there, Balance Boldly, for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. And our newest, The Lazy Overachiever. So all the things are on Think Pro.
Love it.
Awesome. You can stay connected with me at the Danny Bordeaux. Bordeaux is BOURDEAU. You can stay connected with Triggered on Instagram at TriggeredAFPC. You can go to triggeredafpodcast.com to stay up to date with the latest episodes and everything we have going on. And you can always go to triggeredafevents.com to see when we're coming to a city near you. Where can we stay connected with you, Alicia?
You can stay connected with me all over, everywhere at Alicia Reese. That's ALECREESE. I am the only one that's going to pull up that's spelled like that. So good time. Come join me wherever you are mostly, playing in the ether.
Yes, and share this episode with a friend, share it with a mom who just needs to tap into being a little bit more selfish. Share with everyone you think could benefit from this. Remember, we are trying to heal together. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.